Well, good morning and good afternoon to you, wherever you may be. Welcome to Zyxel's Sales and Solution Introduction for all of our networking partners. So if you are a new partner to us, thank you for choosing Zyxel as being one of your network partners. We're looking here to provide you some information on how to use Zyxel, a lot of the product information that comes into play when dealing with what kind of networks you want to build out for your customers. We have, it's going to be about an hour long. It will have a Q&A box. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to use the Q&A section. Thank you for attending again. If you can hear my voice and, just raise your hand to say hello, I would appreciate it. Just to make sure that everyone here can pretty much hear me. All right, thank you, Daniel. I'd just like to confirm that just before we get started. So that's what we're doing. We're going to introduce you to about who Zyxel is, all of the kind of high-level product lines that we offer, give you some kind of information on how to sell the products and things like that. So we won't go too much in depth. We'll kind of hit a lot of the high-level stuff. So if you want to, find out more about some of these specific products and solutions that they have, you can contact our sales department. Our sales team will be happy to help you with any of those questions, and then bring myself on as well. So just to introduce myself, my name is Tri Nguyen. I am the channel sales manager and product manager at Zyxel. I've been here about 15 years now, actually 16, coming on 16 in a couple months. So really excited to be, part of the Zyxel team, the Zyxel family, and looking to bringing you on board as well. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Again, like I said, I want this to be kind of interactive. If you have any questions and things like that, please feel free to use that Q&A section, and we will stop and answer those questions if we can, or just answer them in line, or we will do that at the end as well. So just to introduce ourselves, we've been in the industry for over 30 years now. So we just celebrated a few months ago last year, our 30th anniversary in networking expertise. We have 1,500 employees worldwide. 700,000 businesses are powered by Zyxel solutions for small businesses. We operate in 150 different markets with 100 million devices, creating global connections. So that includes all of the business, the consumer, the telco products as well. So we provide a whole solution from, like I mentioned, the telco service provider product line, our business connectivity, which is where I'm primarily focused on, and the connected home. So we have a wide variety. I usually tell our customers that we have anything that's connected to a network. Zyxel has some sort of solution regarding that. And of course, we are backed by our R&D resources. Now, you saw 1,500 employees worldwide. Well, 500 of them are software and hardware engineers, like in our different global R&D, both in Taiwan and also Germany, and in the US in the Bay Area as well. And 150 tech support technicians are here to also serve you. We have our US-based tech support, which handles all of North America. And that is all in an office right next to my office, which is in Anaheim, California. So we're here on the West Coast, enjoying the weather. Hopefully your weather in wherever you're at is not too bad. So we have a comprehensive portfolio. Security appliance is one with not only in a mode, a controller kind of mode, but also in the cloud. And we'll talk about some of those solutions as we go on. So first topic I wanted to hit up on was security. So security is a very important part of networking, kind of a networking infrastructure. We hear about it all the time on the news, right? We hear about threats, and we hear about data breaches and the newest, ransomware, malware that is coming out. So we actually have a full comprehensive portfolio of product lines that will fulfill kind of different aspects. VPN series focuses primarily on your connectivity between site to site, connecting offices to offices, or maybe a home office to the main office, or remote users using SSL technology, using IPsec technology in order to make those secured encrypted connections back to the office. The NSG series is basically our cloud-managed UTM solution. So that's handled in our Nebula platform, and we'll load Nebula platform at the kind of later on. The USG series is pretty much our biggest seller right now. It is an all-in-one UTM, fully loaded kind of box, or options to choose, and a la carte how you want to do content filtering, antivirus, intrusion detection, malware protection, those kinds of things, application control, being all handled into a single box. So it's perfect for the small business who's looking at potentially doing a lot of different things with that. And of course, our newest technology is our Advanced Threat Protection, our ATP product line, that offers all of the UTM protection functionality, but now it also helps to sandbox and quarantine also unknown malware and unknown files. So we also focused on a lot of availability. We know that the network is very important. So the network has to be available. So we have 4 tiers of high availability. Not only do we do a firmware OS high availability, we have device high availability, we have multiple internet connectivity high availability, and also VPN tunnel high availability, making sure that, again, all of the different aspects of security and connectivity are always available for a small business. Because we know that when a small business is not available or is down, especially with things in the cloud nowadays, the connectivity needs to be there. So if you're looking for a product that needs multiple WAN connectivity, load balancing, failover functions on 2 different internet connections or multiple internet connections, all of our security appliances have that functionality in the different levels of product. So we also depend upon independent expertise. Some of the partners that we've partnered with the UTM products is Bitdefender, Siren, Trend Micro. Those provide the slew of signatures, all of the heuristics and things like that, behaviors, and then it just ties into our engine that does the scanning of those based on those signatures, and then that's where we get how we protect networks in our products. A lot of the other competitors are using in-house products that they're building them either themselves or in-house. So we focus on using the expertise of those who already are doing that on a day-to-day basis. The product's also application aware. So we're doing some layer 7 scanning, making sure that application to the application level can be blocked, can be scanned, can be looked at, and then decided about what to do. A lot of the old way of doing things to do like protection of networks was to, hey, let's get an SPI firewall, let's block some ports, and that's it. But a lot of the sophistication of technology and things like that, and software and also malware, they're able to use things that go beyond just ports, like even simple things, like MS Messenger or some sort of that kind of communication. You have to be able to detect it by the application level itself in the header, and then be able to choose what to do with it. So it gives you granular support, granular control of what to do on that network. Of course, there's to manage all of these devices, especially the licensing that comes into play. This is where partners will find great benefit in selling and using our security appliances. So if you have not yet if you do not have yet created a My Zyxel account, go there and definitely create one. If you've already installed a USG or a security product, you've probably already created one, because that's where you have to go to register the device for the different services that are available, or even to activate trial licenses. So this is really a great platform for partners to really seed into a network, a base platform. I kind of call it kind of the gaming console, of networking, because you literally can install this device as a basic, firewall, a really, good firewall, and add on or even turn on trial licenses for content filtering, for intrusion detection, things like that, that then you can show value to your customer, who then can subscribe to, a yearly subscription. Or you can, break that down and charge them on a monthly basis, depending on how your business model is. But in My Zyxel, it's very important, because that's where you can manage and can, manage the different licenses for your customers. If you are a partner, if you're an approved partner, make sure at the very top of myzyxel.com, in the header, there is a button that says request for reseller view. You want to get that reseller view, because if you have an end customer who wants to add you, or you add yourself as the managing VAR, it allows for you to see their licensing of their devices in your account. So you'll be able to see, the different devices, and based on how you've labeled it, you can manage it. So you can see when they expire, when they're coming up, the different customers that are expiring, so that you can get licenses to renew them. Also then to charge the customer at the same time. So that's where you need to really get on board on managing that. And of course, after you click on that view, you can always reach out to our sales team as well to expedite the process. Usually about 24, 48 hours or so, you'll get reviewed and then approved for that. So It gives you also some tools to be able to do some data mining on your customers. If you have a bunch of information or a bunch of customers that you manage, you can do some reporting and things like that as well. So the VPN series is more of that baseline. This series is focused on getting connectivity, encrypted, secure connectivity between locations, either from home, from remote office, from teleworkers, or from site to site. The cool thing about VPN is this: like if you want to connect, an office with 500 people with another office that has another 200 people, you only need one VPN tunnel. So that one VPN tunnel pipe can be made between those locations, and any one of those people can communicate with each other depending on the rules. It's still subject to firewall rules and access rules and also scanning rules. So you can still do UTM scanning through that as well. But we have high availability. We have tunnel interfaces there with load balancing on the WAN, multiple WAN load balancing with an integrated controller. So we have an integrated controller in the device that allows for you to manage wireless access points around the company, provision them, to set them up for the different SSIDs for your guest network access, etc. And of course, we're using robust, the newest SHA-2 encryption for VPN. And we call it a flexible hybrid VPN design because it offers SSL VPN, IPsec VPN for the most secure, and L2TP over IPsec, which is what a lot of mobile devices or your iPads and tablets and stuff like that will use. But primarily, we build tunnels between offices using IPsec VPN because that is the fastest and most secure option that you can have between those. SSL we use in some cases, but is not as, the throughput on it is not very good because it's using the local browser on the computer, wherever the client is, to also do the encryption process through that SSL encryption. So like access to like a a webmail or something like that, it's great. But if you're trying to transfer files or download files through it, it's probably not as good. You want to move to an IPsec technology to do that. So I wanted to also introduce you to AWS and VPC, and as well as Microsoft Azure, because we've actually gotten approved for both of these services. We've always had, for the last couple of years, we've had the AWS VPC. And just recently, we've announced that we've now been approved for Microsoft Azure. What is VPC? Basically, it's a cloud, right? So that you can host your web applications, your file shares, your CRMs, a database, a DNS server, whatever it may be, on the cloud. So Amazon allows for you to do that through AWS, and Microsoft also allows for their cloud as well. So in order to connect to those services, you actually have to have a VPN or build some sort of VPN to those. And it has to be an approved VPN device because you have to follow some strict information. You have to be tested. You have to get approved for that. So we have special firmware that allows for you to do that within our existing firmware. Not special firmware, special feature that lets you do all that. And so it's literally a server that's offsite that you have now full access as if it was in your own infrastructure. And so if you look on the AWS VPC side of things, we are listed there as well using, if you use the latest firmware, you'll be available for all of those. So we're listed with all those major players. Now the VPN portfolio is, we always have a scale, so you have a small end. Now, just a caveat, the VPN2S is our kind of small home office type device. That does not have the VPC, as well as the USG20 VPN. Those models do not have that VPC. It's not really made, it's made for that small office space. So you're made to connect to your home, to your office from your home. Or maybe you have a small office that has like 5 people that's trying to connect back to a bigger, bigger central location. Now with the VPN 50 and things like that on above, those VPN series models, those ones have access to those features that I mentioned earlier. So that we have the VPN 50 on the low end, all the way up to a USG 2200 VPN that will do a much higher throughput. We are releasing a VPN 1000 product line coming soon in the next, I think in the next month. I think February we'll have that available. So if you're looking again for that high scale VPN series product with multiple gigabit load balancing failover capabilities. All right, so the USG series is our all-in-one security gateway. And again, the portfolio, like I mentioned earlier, it's an all-in-one UTM, but it provides things like content filtering. It still has your robust VPN capabilities. It has WAN load balancing. It has an easy mode on the lower end models to help you kind of get on track, on par with how to configure the device, or at least get it up and running fairly easily and fairly quickly. You're just trying to connect your multiple WAN connectivities, do some port forwarding functions, things like that. The easy mode helps you get, like I said, up to that level really quick. But the learning, it just helps with the learning curve of the product. Now, if you've used our products before, this will be pretty easy for you to do and figure out. Application intelligence. So again, the ability to scan and to notice at the layer 7 different applications and different behaviors and be able to act upon that. And of course, it's also still integrated as well, with all of the wireless LAN controller built in. So you can manage anywhere from 2 out of the box all the way up to 258 or even higher with the larger boxes. Now, on the higher end models, it comes with functions like high availability, link aggregation, hotspot management, managing more access points, doing also SSL packet inspection, and doing high availability. So multiple devices being able to connect to each other and sessions being connected to each other as well. So it's shared across. So if one goes down, the other one automatically takes over. And the portfolio is also scaled as well. On the low end, we have our USG 40 and 40W. The W just stands for wireless, has a wireless access point built into it. But we find a lot of our customers are buying the non-wireless so that they can take advantage of the latest wireless, AC, or now we have Wi-Fi 6 coming out that can be used in this product line. Okay. And so the scale, just so you know, the UTM throughputs and the VPN throughputs, any throughput numbers that you see on a data sheet is based on the highest theoretical max, right? They are pushing the biggest packets with as many sessions as they're in their test. So you have multiple sessions pushing the maximum size packets and things like that to find its breaking point to see how much throughput it can actually push through. But of course, real life scenarios, you're not doing it that. The packet sizes are usually different. It's smaller and larger, and it's variable, right? So usually in order to gauge which product fits into, for your customer, I usually take about a 50% to 60% of that number. So let's say, for example, the UTM throughput of the USG 40 is 50 megabits per second. So that's good for an office that has maybe a 25 meg connection if you're doing full UTM. Now, of course, if you're using it in the capacity of just kind of a basic firewall without kind of all those UTM services, or you're just using it for like content filtering, then the throughput is going to be closer to what the SPI firewall throughput would be, but still at kind of about 50%. So in this case, the SPI firewall is 400 megabits on the USG 40. So that's good for about a 200 meg connectivity if you're doing just content filtering, no UTM kind of major scanning, right? So keep that in mind when you're trying to build out and trying to figure out, well, which model fits for each customer. Now, of course, you may say, well, 25 megabits is really low. Yes, I mean, in some cases, it's low compared to what people can get nowadays. But I have a solution for you, and we'll talk about that right after this one. So the USG 210, 310, again, it's a scale of throughput and different WAN connectivities and WAN flexibility. So when you get up to like the USG 110, actually when you get to the 210, 310, the 310 has 8 configurable gigabit ports. So you can choose as many WANs, as many LANs, however you want to define within those. Now, of course, you can also define virtual LANs inside that. So any one port can have like 8 virtual LANs inside one physical port. So you can VLAN that out. You can do all sorts of fun stuff to breaking up the network. But usually we find customers don't really need that too much. They just have like one port is going to their guest network. One port is going to their private network. So just keep it simple if you can. But I always say about all of our products, especially the security, it can be as simple as you need it, right? It can just function as an SPI firewall, or it can be as complex as you need it as well. So it's so flexible and doing a lot of things that we have a full range of applications that these can apply to. So if you have a new product or project that you're working on and you're not sure if this kind of product would fit, definitely reach out to your sales team, reach out to myself. And let's talk about, if this is the right fit. And most likely than not, this will fit majority of the network, kind of network applications for any small business. So when I say small business as well, it could be anywhere between, 2 people to 500 users. We have applications that have been using this for, in an amusement park as well to offer that kind of service and guest network access. So again, wide range of options there. Now, the ATP is our newest technology. It's using also the newest hardware as well, and that's why we call it advanced threat protection. So conventional UTM, like our USG, has to use signatures. It's bound to knowing what the virus is, or what the signature needs to be, or the reputation or the heuristics, right? The behavior. It has to be defined. And so it's limited by that definition, right? You can only have so much. So what happens when you have the definitions? It's easy. It's known good or it's known bad, right? So you can split that out pretty clearly, but there's a lot of gray area in between, and it can't be identified by conventional UTM. So you have to use something else. So the ATP actually uses sandboxing and also AI to do that. So it's able to detect unknown and zero-day threats and zero-day attacks. In fact, that's a lot of the attacks that are happening these days, is that it's a new virus that is the one that has that is affecting different businesses. So using sandbox technology can help to alleviate, or at least be able to react much quicker than your normal kind of signature-based solutions. So we use a cloud intelligence. So we actually use it in the cloud. We have an AI solution partnered with, and it uses kind of a real-time update and sandboxing solution. So I'll explain a little bit what the sandboxing does, but it will actually employ machine learning. It can evolve. So as there are different attacks, it will learn from those attacks and also add on to the database, making sure that everyone within that network is protected. So how does it conquer unknown security threats? Well, using that secure cloud smart intelligence, an unknown threat, let's say a zip file, gets actually sent to the cloud and is emulated. It's done does some packet emulation, pattern information, any execution it can do. Those packets are all contained within that sandbox. Then it identifies it, whether it's a malicious attack or not. And then based on that, we'll create signature updates into the database. Now, it's really complex on how it's actually doing all that, of course, but it's just, this is a simple way of thinking of it, that attacks will happen, it's detected, and then all that information is shared, but not just shared to the device, but shared to the entire ecosystem, meaning that all ATP devices that are in this cloud or in the cloud at all, using this kind of signature, will get an update of that file, basically on the hash of the information or the detection of that file, so that any future, if that file happens to be passed on or is detected by any other devices around the world, that threat will be eliminated. So it will be, again, shared across the network. So it ensures that the global ATP firewalls are constantly being updated. And so we're proactively making sure that all those customer environments and all those networks are secured, right? So it's all about that sharing, and it's growing over time. And we're using Lastline, and they are the market leader in what they call security effectiveness through NSS Labs. So it's a reliable sandboxing solution for enterprise. So that's enterprise solution is actually being used in this small business. And that's something that we've always kind of pitched about Zyxel. We take enterprise type solutions and bring it to the small business. We package it into a box that's affordable and used in an all-in-one. So Lastline is one of those market leaders in security effectiveness for sandboxing solutions, according to NSS Labs. So a lot of players that are there. So the portfolio consists of the ATP 200, the 500, and the 800. We actually launched as well an ATP 100 last month, I think, or 2 months ago. So even a lower scale model. So you look at the throughput. UTM throughput of the ATP 200 is 450 megabits per second. So that's full UTM, all of the scanning, all of the malware detection, and the sandboxing, and being able to do it at 450 megabits per second. So I can safely say 225 megabits or up to even 300, depending on the application. So that's really great, because one of the biggest problems right now, and I don't know if you're facing it as well, with your customers, they have more and more access now to cable modem services or different WAN connectivities, that it's pushing the envelope beyond 100 megs, 200 megs, 500 megs, or even some cases up to gigabit, right? How do you, the only way in order to solve that problem, in order to get something to make it secure for that kind of speed, you have to spend an exorbitant amount. You have to get a very high-end UTM firewall in order to do that. But what the ATP series does is it brings it back into play, brings it back into a more relative price point to make sure that, hey, in a small business with 5 people, they have a 300 meg connection. They shouldn't be spending $2,000 on, a firewall just to make that work, So this is where it brings into play, and it allows for you to do still full UTM without sacrificing the security of that, but still being able to offer it at a very high speed. Now, the ATP 100 is the UTM throughput on that one, I believe, is 300 or 250 megabits per second, something like that. So it's great for like 100 to 200 megabits per second kind of connectivity, but that's for that smaller office. Now, all of the ATP, if you look at the pricing as well, it all comes bundled with 1 year of the gold security pack. So that's the full UTM license capability. So it has a sandboxing, all of your web security like content filtering, botnet filters, application security like control, email security, anti-malware, cloud query, the cloud database connectivity, intrusion detection, geo IP enforcement. So you can do it by IP address to block, connectivity outside of the US. You can say only US connectivity should talk to my site or talk to my business. You can do that. Managed services with APs. So they're all fully unlocked. So it already comes with like 18 AP support for the 200 all the way up to 130 on the ATP 800. It also comes bundled with SecuReporter. I'll talk about how important SecuReporter is for, especially if you're doing a managed service or even just for reporting on your own kind of service things. So it comes fully bundled. Now, what's the big difference between the ATP and the USG? Well, there are a few things. Obviously, the ATP is a newer hardware platform and it has more feature functions. So depending on what your actual needs are, if you don't care so much for like a botnet filter, sandboxing, and reputation kind of functionality, then you could still go with the USG. But I think the more important aspect of the feature difference is the the throughput. So the UTM throughput, the IDP throughput is massively different, right? It's 2.5 times more on a product like the ATP 500, and even the ATP 500 at its price point, I think its price point is around $600, I believe, street price with the licenses included. It's literally the same, or actually it has a higher throughput than even our highest end USG model, right? So the 1900 model series there, but it still has all the VPN. Now the only major difference is that the USG still has the hotspot managed capability. So if you're doing, it will still do guest network access on the ATP. It can still do a basic authentication, but if you're looking for like billing, credit card billing through PayPal, you want to integrate it with Facebook for Wi-Fi login, those kinds of things, you have to use the USG for now. Now we do plan on having support for the hotspot management in the ATP in the future. So that's coming. But otherwise, ATP is the way to go. It's the future, and it's going to continue to evolve, in the product line, in a product portfolio. Now, I mentioned about reporting, SecuReporter. So what is SecuReporter? It's a place that will centralize your reporting in the cloud for all of Zyxel's, security appliances. So your ATPs, your USGs, and it sends information log to give you kind of that visibility that you need to be able to do analysis, reporting, alerting, monitoring, and see what's going on the network. Now, I mentioned, why is this important? Well, a lot of it is, especially it's the reporting part, being able to show your customers, your end customers that you're serving, a solution that's actually doing something, right? A lot of times people are hesitant to pay for a service, right? They go, well, you're providing me networking, network security. Well, what does that mean? Well, it just means you're secure. Well, how do I know that it's actually doing anything, right? So, rather than just having to log into the device and show them some things, we can collect the data over time and actually have reports made, PDF reports that you can customize and put your logos and things, whatever it is. You can choose what kind of information that goes into that, and it gives you kind of that leverage, right? It gives you this report that you show, hey, this is why you're paying this monthly payment, and this is the viruses you protected against. These are the websites that your employees are going to. This is the bandwidth that you're using, in a monthly basis. So you can get all that, as well as get some alerting, basic alert, functionalities as well, in case sites go down and things like that. So how do we choose? Well, there's a way, I kind of go through a kind of a mental questionnaire, right? I kind of go down this little trail of how do I figure out what devices, is perfect for you? But SecuReporter allows for you to drill into the data, and then you could look at, well, what kind of threats are usually are there. You can see who's the target while you're looking at it, looking at the data as well. You can see when that attack happened, and then be able to take action. You can see who the attacker is, their IP address, whatever it may be. It's all within the logs, where it came from, and you can take action. And you can either use that as reporting, or you can use it for other purposes, right? So that data is very valuable in that regard. Oh, any questions on the security side of things before I move on to our Nebula Cloud section? Okay. So Nebula is Zyxel's cloud solution. It's been, I think it just hit a milestone of 40,000. A few months ago, it hit 40,000 devices on Nebula. So it's split into kind of two different things. Nebula Orchestrator is our SD-WAN management for like our VPN devices that have a site-to-site VPN managing an SD-WAN kind of solution. The major solution that is within the Nebula is the control center. The Nebula Control Center is a centralized place that manages kind of your traditional network, but using product that is allowed or tied into the Nebula Control Center. So it's very scalable. It's a management platform that lets you, especially kind of geared towards an MSP. So if you're a managed service provider or you're looking to become a managed service provider, this is really a great way to manage it. Now, if you're also serving an end user, or if you're part of an IT group or things like that, that you're just managing like one site or maybe a site that has multiple locations, this is still perfect for you as well. It gives you all that management visibility in one cloud solution. So the advantages of using Orchestrator, again, is to get some level of zero-touch provisioning. This also applies to the cloud side as well. Let me go ahead and just skip over to the Nebula itself. So Nebula is made for managed ITs, if that's the kind of service, because it offers a very simple way to getting networks available, not only from the product level, but it's also through the configuration and through the installation. We call it a 1, 2, 3 step, but I always tell customers you technically can do it in any order, right? You plug in the device, right? Again, you can do it in any order. Oops, let me go back. You then can log into the NCC app. So we have an app that's on Android and on iPhone that allows for you to scan the QR code on the device belly or on the box, the brown box of the device itself, and register that device into your Nebula Cloud account. So this could be done by yourself, your technician at the office, or even a technician doing the installation at the location. And once it's in the cloud, it can then get, you can assign it to maybe that customer, and it will grab configurations and then start monitoring after it's done. Now, I'd mentioned you could do it in any order. You could literally not even unbox the device. You could just take the box out of your warehouse, or or ship the box to the customer. And whoever is doing the installation, all they need to make sure is they scan the serial number, the MAC address information that comes out of this QR code into that app. And by doing so, you could have cookie cutter solutions that's already pre-configured for that customer. And so this is where the power of Nebula comes in. You can already have a preset that has the gateway, the switch, the access point pre-made for, let's say, a doctor's office or a dental office, for example. And that's the usual typical case. You'll find, you need a switch, a gateway, and a wireless access point. And it may have a guest network access and then a private and a public network, right? So you have this pre-configured cookie cutter solution. You can actually use Nebula to clone that into a new customer. You can scan the gateway, the switch, the access point, and put it into that new customer account. And now it's actually ready to wait for configuration. Of course, you can tweak within the cloud, like maybe the SSID is made for that customer name, whatever they may request. And then they may have some little changes here and there for port forwarding or whatever it may be, right? You can just tweak that. And now it's sitting there ready. These devices haven't even been taken out of the box. You can ship that off as either a self-install kit that you can include some instructions. That's basic, right? It's really basic in the fact that you just need to connect the gateway to the internet, the switch into the gateway, the wireless access point into the switch. And, wherever or however that's connected, becomes now the network. And what it does is once it has internet connectivity, it calls home. So you can literally be up and running in minutes because now those devices will auto provision. They will call home to the Nebula cloud, and the cloud will say, okay, here you are. And they go, okay, who am I? You belong to, customer dental office 1. And all of the configurations on the newest firmware, the latest firmware gets pushed to the device. The configurations for that site gets pushed to as well. And then within a few minutes, all of that gets updated and it calls back home. You'll see it pop up into the Nebula cloud for that. And now you can start monitoring and managing that solution already. So you really don't need to send, a super skilled networking, technician per se to go do an installation. You can actually even reach out to third-party installers or contractors and things like that to do this basic level of installation. And once they can get it onto the internet, then your technicians that are sitting at the NOC can work through any kind of configurations or any kind of tweaks that needs to happen within your office or within your networking, your control center, right? So they can do that anywhere, or whoever's managing can actually do it anywhere without any, from anywhere they have internet connectivity. And the cool thing is that it does not need any additional hardware or software. You just need that networking device. You don't need a cloud key. You don't need the standalone, thing that needs to be plugged inside that network. It's all housed. The agent that talks to the Nebula cloud system is built into each one of those devices. So there's no hassle of installing all of that. It's all in the cloud. And of course, because it's in the cloud, you can access it anywhere. Like I mentioned, you could be sitting on a beach checking on the network, or your customers can be given access for like view capabilities. So they can view what's going on in that network as well. So they can see all of the diagrams and where the connectivity is, what's being blocked. And then you're able to configure, monitor all that remote access without any hitch. And you can get information on that mobile app as well. So the app's is great for that installation process, but it can also take a look at your overall network health and see what the top devices are and things like that. So we continue to enhance that app as well to make it very useful for our customers, for our partners to do. So you can manage all of them in one place. We can do multiple tenants. So you might be saying, well, do I manage all of my customers, like different customers, in one kind of one login? And the answer is yes. We've built it as a multi-tenant. So you have a multi-tenant MSP view. So when you first log in, you can have organizations. The organizations are basically your different customers, right? You can have a whole slew of whatever number of organizations you want. So let's say you had a retail chain. That would be retail chain 1, and each one of their locations can be built as a separate site, right? So you can even do a customer where maybe he has a main office and a home office. So you can say, well, organization is customer 1, let's say dental office 1, and he also works out of his home office as well. So you have in his organization a home site, right? So dental office 1 home, right? Or something like that. However you want to label it, that makes sense to you to manage that multiple tiers. So it gives you a quick glance of it. Of course, you can click in and drill into that. So when you go into an organization, you get an organization view of all the different sites within that and all the overall health. And then of course you click into that, each one of the sites, and you get a site view. Of course, you can still navigate at the very top on what's going on, but it gives you, within the site, gives you a real-time traffic summary of the top internet applications that are being used, the top IP clients that are using it, and an overall status of the devices with PoE draws, wireless access points, clients, things like that. And you're able to click into those as well to find out more information. And of course, you can use this to configure everything as well. So Nebula Flex is a term that you'll hear when you're dealing with Nebula. What it just means is that the hardware platform that's called Nebula Flex, or has Nebula Flex like extended to it, is, or if it's Flex capable, then it can be used in standalone mode, or it can be flipped into the Nebula platform. So you can use these traditional, standalone. You can configure the device as a standalone device as you're typically used before, but then use it into the Nebula platform with licensing or with free licensing. So we have free and also a paid pro license. So the pro licenses allow for you to switch, some of the access points into the cloud, into the Nebula platform. So Nebula that has any devices that you buy that says Nebula Flex Pro, it includes 3 years of professional pack included in that. All right, so let's some of the little details that I want to just clear up just from a partner standpoint. Like I mentioned, we offer a free Nebula solution. So this is to compete against Ubiquity and things like that that offer a free cloud solution. So we offer Nebula on our platform as a free option, and it gives you still the auto provisioning of the hardware, automatic updates in firmware, unlimited management, all those things. The major difference that it has is that it will keep the logs and monitoring information for only 7 days. For only 1 month. And the full professional pack will do it for 365 days, right? So the log, it's a 7-day rolling. Central device monitoring, 7 days. Device logs is 7 days on the free. And on the full professional pack, it's 365. So that's the major thing. The other one major difference is professional pack has the site cloning and also organization-wide backup and restore. So if you're looking at becoming a managed service provider or looking at doing this as a kind of a management thing, definitely the professional pack is where you need to go. And we offer something that's really different from some of the competitors that are out there that offer this level of cloud. We offer an annual or a lifetime license, right? We can do annually per device. So that's the licensing is per device. You get an annual, you guys pay an annual fee for the management of the device, or you can purchase a one-time lifetime seat for that organization in that site. Now, the cool thing about the lifetime seat is it's one time, and if the technology happens to change, so let's say in an access point, the technology changes quite often. So let's say you're on Wi-Fi 5 and you need to move to Wi-Fi 6 coming up, you can literally remove the Nebula device, the AP from that site, virtually, and put a new device with the Wi-Fi 6 in there, and it will occupy that lifetime license, right? So it takes over that seat. So that really helps in terms of like, even though you're going through an upgrade cycle, you could still continue to charge the customer for that. Now, it opens up a lot of cool business cases where you can charge just a minimal, upgrade fee and just continue your services, their monthly services on that. So really giving you the option, flexibility to do all that within the Nebula Cloud. And the security pack is something that you would have to add on if you're doing UTM functionality on any of the gateways. There's a separate annual security pack. Unfortunately, because those signatures are being paid to our partners that we work with for all the signatures and things like that, all of that has to be an annual licensing. So that's a continual thing for UTM services. Now, lifetime on just the cloud functionality, the cloud service for the professional grade, that's you can buy a lifetime version for that. Now, you'll notice when you do log on to Nebula and it's sitting in the free, if it's in the free kind of the free Nebula side of things, you'll notice there are some features when you drop down any of the menu items and configure things. You'll see a little like caveat. It will say like upgrade. Like those are the features that are part of the professional pack. And we continue to add value. We continue to add feature functions like analysis. We've added IGMP analysis for if you're doing video over IP, those kinds of things like that. So, or IPTV, we have analysis and reports and things like that's part of the professional pack. So wireless is the other kind of a major solution that we offer. Again, we can use it within Nebula or as standalone or in a controller mode. So what are some of the challenges of wireless today, right? Most of the time it's, I can't get connectivity, I don't have coverage, right? So have you ever experienced where you have a lot of people in the area, putting more APs or putting even the new technologies doesn't improve the performance? Or if you're building in a smart classrooms, like kids and tablets are having issues kind of getting the speeds that they need, or you've invested in new technology and haven't found any improvement on the performance of it, right? You've gone to the next thing. Or in an office environment where, for video conferencing and things like that, you still have interrupted service or maybe artifacting of things, so the wireless is not clear, or having to worry about providing conference area access for maybe a hotspot for hundreds of people. right? So have you experienced some issues there that have gone in those kind of cases? Well, why are there issues? Well, the issue is what we call co-channel interference. Means that in order to achieve faster speeds, you have to use larger channel widths within the wireless spectrum. And in so, you're also then cross, interfering with anyone else who's using any of those other channels that are in there as well. So co-channel interference is like two motorways like coming together. You have people just trying to communicate to an access point at the same time, and there's collisions of packets. And when there's collisions and there's interference that way, well, I'll have to resend it again. So they have to constantly resend. So you can imagine the more and more people, the more and more devices that are around, an access point trying to communicate, it's just a giant, kind of a crashing of all this information, and nobody can get through, right? So that's what basically happens, and everybody gets delayed. Now, the traditional ways of dealing with co-channel interference is pretty simplistic, but not very good, right? It's effective, but not good. In order to to deal with co-channel interference, you turn the power down. So don't talk as loud. So your APs are not as strong. But what happens is then your coverage area that has actual, where you actually can communicate is also reduced. So doesn't really help with that, because now you have dead spots. So the smart antenna technology, which is a Zyxel patented technology, helps to increase the capacity, helps to increase coverage through the reduction of interference, being able to do all that in a very efficient way as well. So how does smart antenna work? Now you have your traditional antennas in an access point. They're omnidirectionals, right, that go kind of everywhere. You have your directional antenna pieces that are just talking in a certain direction. And of course, it could be virtualized as well, right? You can bend things like that with different parts of the technology. But smart antenna does something kind of unique. It scans for the device that it's talking to, and at the same time can help to mitigate interference, because what it does, it looks at 700 different optimized antenna patterns and finds the optimal beam that's shaped for that client. So my analogy for this application typically, or this technology, is, well, imagine if I'm in a kind of a giant field with you and I need to communicate with you. So if I cup my hands like this, you can hear me much louder, right? I don't have to speak as loud, or even if I'm speaking loud, you can hear me better because all of my signal's going in that direction. Now, at the same time, if I cup my hands and I'm listening to you as well, that helps for me to, again, focus that and mitigating any sound, any noise that's behind me. So that's what it does in essence, right? But what happens if you are roaming? Because we're not just sitting there idle, most of the time. So as the client moves, the AP and the smart antenna technology will actually move along with it and actually find another pattern that will fulfill the need that it needs to communicate with that device. And if you want to find out more about why smart antenna technology is important, you can always Google the University of Bruxelles. That's kind of like a big university in Italy that does technology. And they did an analysis on why the power of smart antenna technology. Why was that important? So you can find that link here, but you can also Google for that. Just look for Zyxel, University of Bruxelles in Google, and you'll be able to find that. And basically, we got put up against Aruba, Ruckus, Cisco, and only Ruckus was the other one in this particular case that had a smart antenna technology. And so we were able to outperform. We dealt with the co-channel interference up to 70% better than Aruba, 56% better coverage than even against the Cisco, better than the other smart antenna vendor as well. So our performance, our antenna interference test, all of those that they had with multiple devices roaming between a network or within a network, trying to recreate, actual network interference, our product actually outperformed all that. So we're really proud of how we've designed the product. It's designed for, with a lot of that in mind, to make sure that a lot of the interference comes into play. So we've refined tuned our device. That's why we can offer a lifetime warranty on it. You can see just on this breakdown or this explosion of the product, where the antennas are, they're shielded from the PCB itself, right? The motherboard, that in each one of the radios and the chips and things like that are also shielded with themselves. There's a back plane that also helps with heat dissipation and shielding as well from interference from other devices. And that's where a lot of the interference kind of comes from as well. Other devices, other APs, as well as maybe even with the radios themselves. So we fine-tuned all that. Our Nebula Flex access points, these are the ones that can go onto the Nebula cloud or have free connectivity. Or we have our NAP series, which comes already preloaded with multiple years, 3 years of the Nebula solution. Of course, we have outdoor solutions as well, indoor, outdoor. Also, you can use indoor with our outdoor enclosure. So we have an enclosure solution for any indoor devices that you want to just use outdoor or just like under the wings of overhangs and things like that. The 5123s is our business class level products that offer, again, both flex and non. And then our WAC series is our flagship product model that allows for you to have that smart antenna technology. So if you're looking for smart antenna technology, it's the WAC series. All the 6000 series are offering you that, both indoor, outdoor, and also in-wall as well. So we have in-wall solutions for that functionality. Now we also are releasing our Wi-Fi 6 solution this year, so keep that in mind as well. All right, so wireless can be used, any of those wireless access points. If you're not using it within Nebula, you can still use it within our controllers. So our VPN series, our USGs, our ATPs can all act as functional controllers for that network, for those managed APs, okay? Or you can still use them with our dedicated wireless LAN controllers that can manage anywhere from 64 to 1024 access points from a single device. Now, lastly, on this topic or on this kind of presentation is our switching network. Even though it's last, it's one of the most important aspects of a network. It's the backbone of the network. So it's really important on figuring out which switch is perfect or for that application. So some of the basics on the naming convention for our switches, ES stands for just a 10100 switch. It's a Ethernet switch. The GS is a gigabit switch. So it operates up to 1 gig ports. XS is a switch that is 10 gig or multi-gig. So the X just stands for the Roman numeral 10. So those are all dedicated either 10 gig or multi-gig gig ports. XGS is kind of a hybrid. It's a gigabit switch by nature. So all of the traditional ports, your copper, your fiber, whatever it may be, is gigabit, but it has dedicated 10 gig uplinks, either SFP plus or copper in some cases. And then Metro Ethernet, the MGS, those are just Metro carrier type switches. If it ends in a P or an HP, it stands for PoE or high powered PoE. So HP is usually PoE plus. Nebula uses still the P, I believe. So just keep that in mind. And F stands for fiber. So if there's an F at the end, it means all of the ports are traditionally are typically all fiber. So if you're doing gigabit fiber type applications. But the number one application that's being used for switches is PoE, because you're powering up access points. You're powering up different devices like voice over IP phone or IP cameras. There's a whole area that's why PoE is the most popular application for switches. Now we do something kind of different. We call it Zyxel's consumption mode, or I call it intelligent PoE. We can actually detect and monitor the actual draw of the devices and then be able to use that against the budget. In typical classification mode that a lot of other solutions that are out there, they will budget out the entire kind of classification of that. So if a device says, hey, I'm a class 802.3, AT or an AF solution, then it will be 15 watts. It'll be put up against the budget. And I'll show you an example in just a second. But because it's a managed solution, you can also control what each PoE port does. You can schedule things, you can turn on and off different access points or solutions to do a reset. So in traditional PoE switches, in classification mode, 802.3 AT is a 30 watt solution. So if this WAC access point was just used in that kind of switch, if we want to power it up 20 access point, it would take 600 watts of power to do so. But using Zyxel's Smart Intelligent PoE solution in consumption mode, because it only draws 16 watts, the budget will be modified. So against the budget, in order to power up 20 access points, you only need 320 watts. So out of a 375 watt supply, there's plenty of space there. So that means that the switch would typically cost less because you don't need a giant power supply, and also it costs less to operate as well because you don't need that big power supply to keep on for all these devices to be powered. Now we have a full range of PoE devices from the low end, more budget type with over 100 watts, all the way up to 1,000 watt, depending on what your solutions may be, with and without 10 gig connectivity. So very affordable, small business can afford 10 gig with PoE capabilities. So it's really ready for those higher throughput access points that's available today. You have our smart managed switch line, including models that have 10 gig copper and fiber uplinks. This is where our best seller is, our GS1920 V2, especially for partners, and our XGS 1930s. These are our Nebula Flex switches, being able to use them as a layer 2 managed switch on a standalone web managed or used in the Nebula cloud. The XGS, like I mentioned earlier, is our 10 gig version, so it has the 10 gig uplinks on that. So you can make sure you can chain them together, things like that. And then of course our NSW is our full cloud Nebula switch platform. Our GS2200 series is our full layer 2 managed or a fully managed switch that offers you all of the security functions that you would find in a switch, as well as CLI console access ports and things like that. So this is where you would go if you're looking at higher end projects, again, with and without PoE, with and without 10 gig. And then our XS series is our all 10 gig kind of, I call it a Frankenstein kind of core type switch. It's like the 38-28F has multi-gig port capabilities. So you can do the 1 gig, 2.5 gig, 5 gig, and 10 gig capabilities on some of those ports. So there's different combinations of both copper and with SFP plus fiber. Kind of bridges the gap between devices that have 10 gig in the copper and then devices that have 10 gig in the fiber space. All right, so lastly is our IP surveillance switch. We have a product line, our GS 1300 series, that's made for surveillance. Places where you need to have a reliable power source, right, in a camera. These are the challenges that you have when you're dealing and installing video cameras or IP cameras. You need a low-cost switch that has enough power to do that, but still have to have networking complexity or be able to handle those kind of network complexities. Because what we're finding out is a lot of the installers of cameras are now being asked to also manage, networks as well. So they're now becoming network technicians. And so be able to mix that network together if necessary, being able to use, different types of functionalities like they would find in a smart switch. So right now, a lot of people are just using whatever they can find as a commercial switch, using it for this application. But one of the key functionalities that this kind of switch line offers helps to solve a lot of the solution issues with IP cameras is it has a function to do extended range. Extended range allows for you to push 10 megabits per second. It's a standard base up to 250 meters. That's 820 feet. Now, typical Ethernet, for your Cat 5, Cat 6 type thing, it's 100 meters, right? It's usually 300 feet of data and power. But now using extended range, we can actually boost that. So you could power an IP camera at 250 meters away. And be able to do that with both the managed solution and the unmanaged solution. We also provide continuous PoE, meaning that if the device ever reloads a configuration, goes factory default, firmware upgrades, any kind of abnormal reboots, the ports will all still provide power to those cameras so that when the device actually comes back online from those functions, the cameras did not have to reboot. So then they'll just continue to send traffic again. You don't want the switch to reboot and then wait for then the cameras to reboot once the power is given back to those cameras. You can also detect the camera status. You can find out what the PoE draw is, the health, the name of it. You can click through if there's an an IP address that's associated with it. It can detect that, and you can connect through to manage those devices as you wish. It also has a built-in auto camera recovery, meaning that it can detect and do some ping or LLDP detection of the device. And if there's a detection that, hey, it's not there, it will try to go through an automatic reboot kind of a cycle. So you can configure that. You can configure how you want it to behave. The cool thing that we also, we've worked with partners to get these functions in there as well. Just like when you unplug a device, you want to wait for, let's say 10 seconds before you power it back on again. So it has that built-in function as well. You can configure those to resume the power, resume the polling, and make sure that it can come back online. Of course, all of this information can get alerted. You can be sent alarms when that happens, things like that. So it's built for reliability. All of our switches, and again, like a lot of our Zyxel products, is built for that. So again, we can offer lifetime warranty on our business class products. So we use better protection on the ports for electrostatic discharge, surge protection, things like that. The fan is an auto fan. It can detect to minimize usage and also reduce noise. We use solid state capacitors in our devices so that it's not a failure point, and also high quality power supply to make sure that it's highly available. Now, all of these things are costly, right? But yet Zyxel will still be competitive in the pricing points of any of the products out there. We can compete with that. So the switch comes in again for the surveillance, unmanaged and managed. And these are some of the aspects there, anywhere between 60 watts of power all the way up to 200 and 375 watts on the managed side, right? So we have that solution. Now, lastly, partner program. If you have not yet subscribed or gone to been part or signed up for our partner program, I advise you to go and do that. Go to vars.zyxel.com, find out more information on that. It gives you access to our systems engineers on the high level tiers, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's just a matter of, in order for you to maintain silver, a silver pricing tier, which gives you 16% discount, you have to sell $6,000 in a 6-month period. And then after that, if the higher tier and the gold tier, you can get 20% at distribution discount at distribution. So we're here to provide you the margins that you need, also the support that you need to selling Zyxel products. So if you have any questions, feel free to call us. You can reach out to your sales rep. We have dedicated sales rep on the East Coast, West Coast, and also we have some key account reps as well. You can always contact me as well. My email address is try@zyxel.com. And feel free, if you have any feedback for me, let me know about either this webinar, or if you have any topics that you want us to cover. We do kind of weekly on a Tuesday or Thursday, we'll have what we call Tech Talks that will bring forth a topic of discussion and be able to provide you, insight on that. And we have like kind of a forum discussion on those topics. So it's really informative. So again, thank you so much for spending this this hour or so with me. There's probably a lot of information for you to figure out what works with you, but we're here to be your networking ally. So hopefully you reach out to us and reach out to myself, and again to your sales rep. If there are any questions right now, feel free, you can answer or ask them in the Q&A section. If not, because I did hold you for past the hour, again, I appreciate you spending the afternoon or morning with me in discussing this. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. So at this moment, I don't see any questions right now. So if you feel free, let's see. I don't see anything on Facebook either right now. So, but we are live at Facebook. So, all right. So Adam asked the question: what are the meshing capabilities in Nebula APs? So, depending on the product itself, there are you have to check with I have to check with our product managers for the access points on the actual meshing. Now, from a roaming capability, there is the built-in roaming capabilities within that. Now, true meshing, where the device is sitting on unplugged to the network, if it's a floating mesh, that one is a little bit more difficult because there's a catch-22 in that. In the auto provisioning, it cannot, right? Because it cannot connect to the internet because it doesn't know that it needs meshing in order to get to the internet. So there's kind of a chicken and eggs scenario there. There are solutions that will help you with that, but from a roaming perspective, people roaming through it, we're able to manage the roam just like our normal standalone product with the roaming. So you can either do 802.x like pre-authentication functions through it, or just typical roaming. Oh, one of the major roaming features that you can now configure in Nebula is what we call like client power. So you can client steering and band steering. So you can actually set a threshold on when the DBI is a certain threshold. If they're at like a neg 85, you can auto kick them. Because a lot of times when people are roaming with an APs to an AP, their devices are the ones that hold on to that, that old access point, even though they're sitting under a new access point on that roam. So we're able to kick them off so that they can reassociate back to a closer access point. All right, so I do not see SSL VPN on Nebula routers. What happened? So SSL VPN will be added right now. Currently, there hasn't been a major request for it. So if you do need it for any applications, Rodelio, please make that suggestion within our Nebula form. Talk a little bit about Wi-Fi 6 mesh. When can we expect it? Again, I have to check with our since our Wi-Fi 6 product has not yet come out yet. I have to check with our product manager for the access points that on that topic. Okay. If there are no, and again, if there are no other questions, thank you so much again for spending the time here. My name is Tri. Again, reach out to me at try@zyxel.com. Love to hear from you and get you connected here. So have a great rest of your day, rest of your day, rest of your week. Hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.